Okay, recording first episode, Foot Nerd Tennis on 11/17/2022 at 2 p.m. Central Time with Nick Holt and Ruth O'Donnell. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Hi, family, friends, foot nerds, and anyone else listening to this today. I'm here with Nick Holt, and I'm Ruth O'Donnell, and we are foot nerds. We are foot nerds who love to play tennis. And on all kinds of play in general, but we specifically are here because of tennis and racket sports, and we are creating a digital tool health kit specifically for racket sports players and tennis players. And we want to talk about that with you today. So we're going to unpack what we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, when we're doing it, and all the nuts and bolts that come along with that. So I'm going to start. I think a good place to start for most people who may not be familiar with what a foot nerd is by defining who we are and what we do and why we call ourselves foot nerds. So a foot nerd we're about 200 people globally who take a specific approach to our health. We call ourselves foot nerds because we accept the fact that a conversation about whole body excellent health begins at the feet. And so we say that a whole body foot conversation is a whole body conversation. And we also approach health from certain principles and guidelines. So I just wanted to talk briefly about that before we get in and unpack the whole talk. But foot nerds have guiding principles, fundamental first principles, and a first principle is a fundamental truth that is reduced down to like the most basic truth that we all can agree on. And for foot nerds, we agree, number one, that a human body is a self-organizing and self-healing machine. We accept the magnificence of what our human bodies can do for us and how they heal and how they organize themselves for the benefit of survival and play. And the second guiding principle that we follow is the SAID principle, and that is specific adaptation to imposed demands. Simply put, that means that our bodies adapt to whatever inputs we give them, whether that is a healthy, useful input or a not so useful, unhealthy input. So as an example, if we constantly are always inside and with shoes on and looking at screens, our bodies adapt to that. And then the opposite is also true. The more we can move our bodies organically and play and get out of our shoes, the bodies start to begin to adapt in a way that is super healthy and resilient for that too. And then foot nerds we also take the 5 golden rules approach. And so what that means is that foot nerds have ditched traditional ramped, inflexible, narrow shoes, and instead we have incorporated into our lives as much as possible being barefoot and natural footwear. We also sit for less than 3 to 4 hours a day in a chair sitting position, recognizing that sitting is really not very good for our whole body movement and health. And if we want to be playing lots of tennis, sitting for long periods of time is probably not going to work for us longevity wise in our game. Number 3 is that we work to restore a resting deep squat, barefoot, hip distance, heels down. And we do that daily so that we adopt that position as a resting position over time. And we take a long-term mindset. So we don't we're patient and we don't try to do all of this in one day. And the last thing is that we spend time each day balance training. So recognizing that balance training is really important because if your balance is not very good, if you can't balance on a beam or you can't balance on one foot easily and you're out of practice, that that also masquerades as a lack of strength and mobility. So balance training gives you really good biofeedback about your strength and your mobility. So that's like where we come from in a big picture point of view. And then what Nick and I are going to talk about today is we think that we have an idea to create a digital health kit for tennis players and racket sports players that could help us with our longevity in our sports and overall health in general. So I wanted to turn it over to Nick to discuss a little bit more about why we're doing this.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth. I apologize for the raspy voice here. I'm just overcoming a little bug, but it's great to be here. That was a great intro, Ruth. I think the big why for us is really, if you look around, like we really have this crisis of health. And we know that exercise is medicine. We know that, the more we move, especially if we're outside with other humans, the better we feel, right? So this is really our hard goal is just trying to get more people, trying to move the needle with this kind of health crisis that we have. And I think tennis is such a powerful tool because it's such a beautiful sport. We can play it well into the later years of our life. We can play it with different ages, different levels. But the reality is that most people who play tennis are experiencing some kind of pain, discomfort, repetitive injuries. And so what we really wanted to do with this product is create something that allows people to understand sort of what's going on in their bodies, why they're experiencing the pain, and certain protocols, stretches, exercises of what they can do to sort of alleviate and restore health. Because I know I personally get so much joy out of hitting a little yellow ball. And I know everybody else that I play with, it's really one of the best parts of their day or their week. And the reality is that most people don't necessarily have the right sort of foot health or hip health or shoulder mobility in order to play tennis for the amount of time they want to play. So that's really our two big whys. Is there anything that I missed there, Ruth?
Mm-mm.
Okay. And then I'll just quickly share my story. So I grew up, I started playing tennis when I was 3 years old, and we'll try to maybe dig up this picture of me, long blonde hair. I grew up outside of New York City, about a 5-minute walk down to the public high school tennis courts. And I would go down there with my brother. And it was just, I played sports, but tennis really was something that I really excelled at. And I played competitively through my early years. And then in high school, I had a really bad sort of back injury that sidelined my sort of tennis career. I got recruited to play college basketball, but that never really worked out. But I realized after I started working in sort of the real world, the corporate world, I would still play tennis, but I was always having low back pain. My foot was hurting, I had Achilles tendonitis. And I realized that my body just wasn't really prepared for the requirements that tennis sort of demanded. And so I'm 42 years old right now. In the last few years, I've really taken a holistic approach using the sort of foot and ankle health kit to restore my feet to sort of from the ground up. And now I'm able to play a lot longer, pain-free, and it's really a beautiful thing. So I really do believe that if we just take care of our bodies and we give ourselves the right inputs, that we can sort of restore health, we can address our issues, and we can continue to play tennis for, decades and decades. That's at least my goal.
Yeah, likewise, my goal too. And before I give a quick background about my story, I just wanted to piggyback on what you were saying about how, our foot health and our hip health, we have a tendency to look to orthotics and more cushioned shoes and lots of like external like products and modalities in order to make ourselves feel better. And so I think we forget about the said principle, and I want to keep coming back to the idea that our bodies really are designed to adapt. And so the more that we give it those inputs and take away the unnecessary parts that I think over time make us feel worse and worse and add to the problem, we start to feel better and better. So my background is that I, like Nick, played competitive sports all through high school. I played volleyball, basketball, and softball. My parents were trying to keep me out of trouble, so they put me in sports, and it worked really well. I fell in love with volleyball, and I played college basketball. but I was always plagued by ankle sprains, but I never really paid close attention when I was that young because I recovered so quickly, and then I was always in really good physical shape. I really love to move. I've always been a mover and a player. I've always played sports and always been involved in some kind of activity, whether it's dancing or any sport. I played after college, I went to grad school and I worked in strength and conditioning. And then little by little, I got more and more sedentary, oddly enough, through my studies in biomechanics and kinesiology, and all of the things that you would think that would make you more physical were actually making me more sedentary, studying in that way. And when I worked as a strength and conditioning coach, I also noticed that, like, when we would get into the cage with the college athletes, the cage being like the strength and conditioning cage, we called it, the playfulness, the real honest, like, body movements that you see in sports were not being like really mimicked inside the strength and conditioning compound. It was like lots of linear movements and lots of products and supplements. And then when you would watch athletes in their actual sport, they moved so differently. Like, it didn't make sense to me, but I didn't ever question what we were doing. And then I went on to work in the corporate world as well. And I got a really bad knee injury. I tore my ACL and I had a surgery. And after that, I stopped moving completely. I did not trust my body anymore. And I was always in some kind of pain. My rehab I wasn't very committed to the rehab. I don't think I trusted myself. And I had like whatever the insurance company gave for your amount of rehab sessions. And then I just stopped moving. I think I was very depressed. Over time, I gained lots of weight. I didn't move much. And then little by little, I started to make my way back to a healthy lifestyle, found some good people and the Foot Collective, and started to regain my composure by taking off my shoes and balance training, and just little by little coming back to movement. And then I found tennis and I always took like tennis classes here and there, but when I got involved in tennis recreation league here in my city in Mobile, Alabama, I fell in love with everything about it, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, over time. But like, I was so happy to be a part of a community, competing, being outdoors all the time, like I just always want to be outside, but like, you can only walk so much without being Forrest Gump, it was just really fun to be involved with other people and doing something really fun and competitive. And so, so that's a little bit about my background and who I am, and why I want to create this digital product that Nick and I are talking about today is for the reason that we play and we see and talk to so many people who love tennis, are super passionate about hitting that little ball back and forth. Most people can't understand why, but we know why. And most everybody, I would dare to say that probably 99% of people that I come in contact with, no matter what level they are dealing with some kind of chronic pain, tension patterns, or injury that they have to deal with on a daily basis throughout their tennis life.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of really the genesis for this is, okay, how if we can create a digital tool that helps people. I think the framework is different than I think what's out there, because I think what's out there is, okay, here's some program to get stronger or improve your conditioning, or even there's some tennis specific sort of programming, but this really is a different approach from using a different framework of understanding the body, understanding, our limitations of what's going on. And so that we can really sort of approach this slightly differently, so we can really get to the root cause of what's causing that pain. Because I think if we look what's out there, most of it, from sneakers to elbow braces, they're really just masking
Yes.
the symptoms, right?
Yep.
Which we might need from time to time, but really the idea with this digital tool is to give you someone the tools to understand sort of what's going on and how to train and how to give the body the input so that you can actually sort of restore your health. understanding that the body kind of is this self-organizing, self-healing, beautiful piece of machinery.
Yes. So let's dig into what is it? What is the digital tool or the digital protocol? And I'll start by just introducing it because it's the bedrock of like what our protocols are at TFC, the Foot Collective. So the Foot Nerd program, or the Foot Nerd project, is a project by the Foot Collective. And so the Foot Collective makes digital tools and products like balance beams and toe spreaders and cork balls and all kinds of great things to help us in our quest to restore our foot health. And then we also create educational tools or digital protocols to help empower people to take full responsibility for their own well-being and their health from the feet up. So the foot and ankle health kit was one of those protocols that was created for people, which was a 42-day, it still is, a 42-day commitment, 30 minutes a day, where people become their own scientists. And so they take data, we collect data in the way of screens to see like what are the baseline of our foot health, what is the quality of our foot health at this moment, how about our squat, how about our hips, how about our knees and such. And then for the next 6 weeks we embark and we experiment with different types of exercises and balance training and working on this so that we spend 30 minutes a day. And at the end of 6 weeks, you have created a habit of restoring your own foot health. And so you want to take it from there, Nick?
Yeah, sure. So
okay.
That's sort of, I mean, our goal, like with this product, is kind of modeling that same kind of formula, because it's really powerful when you actually take the time to sort of assess your body and understand what's going on, and you actually are really consistent with the daily practices. I know for me personally, after going through the Foot Health Kit program, I realized that so many sort of aches and pains, little sort of things in my knee or my low back started really going away once I sort of addressed my foot function, once I started training and sitting less, once I started spending more time barefoot. So really the goal, the tennis sort of product is the same formula. We're just going to address it. We're going to start with the foot, obviously, but we're also going to look at some other things that are specific to tennis. So we'll look at some shoulder health stuff. We'll look at some rotational abilities. But really the formula is very much the same, because again, it comes down to, is your body able to do the certain sort of movements that playing tennis requires? And it's a very sort of binary yes or no. And then the beautiful thing is you kind of have this sort of clear roadmap of what you need to do. And you have other foot nerds, tennis nerds kind of on the same path with you. I think that's the other sort of powerful element that we haven't really touched on yet, is that this element of community and other people on a similar journey, having sort of struggles, challenges, being there for support. I think that's a really powerful piece that I think will also be part of this digital product, is just being part of the Foot Nerd community.
Yeah, for sure. So the protocol, I mean, what does the actual product look like? So it's going to come in digital lessons that will unpack more the SED principle and first principles, and then there'll be guided digital lessons. So you'll have week by week, you'll have an opportunity to look at some lessons and then get some guidance on what happens next, and then create your own experiment, or take from lists of experiments and start working on those that are specific to your needs, and then checking in with, like Nick said, with the community in order to make little changes. And really what it boils down to is the reason why this tends to be successful is because of the community and witnessing each other, and our proof of work. So one of the one of the things that we really rely on at the Foot Collective and through Foot Nerd training and the health kit is proof of work. Proof of work education is that we do the work, we show the work to our peers, and we receive feedback, and we also witness each other's journey. So like Nick said, that's a really important element. And then who is it for? The Foot Nerd Tennis Health Kit, we think, is for anyone and everyone, specifically people who want to have longevity and try to resolve pain, chronic tension patterns in their bodies, resolve old injuries and acute injuries, and all levels, any age, and all levels and all backgrounds, from the weekend warrior to elite athletes. This can help anyone, in my opinion, from my experience and watching. So we have in our Foot Nerd program, we have had elite athletes, professional athletes who go through these types of protocols with the Foot Collective and get valuable experience from it. So that's why we think it's valuable for everyone.
Yeah, and just to sort of double click on that, I think, because of the approach is different, it's not just a, hey, do this program. It's very individualized to sort of what can your body do right now. It really is applicable to all those levels, all the way up to those sort of high level players, but even the beginners, because, tennis is one of those things where there's so many different layers to the game, and that's what makes it so beautiful. But if you don't have that sort of foundation of movement and ability and joint health, it's going to definitely get in the way of your longevity with the sport. So it really is something that can be used for all levels at any age. That's our goal. Yeah.
That is our goal. And we're really excited about our goal because we think it's going to be pretty fun and exciting. And because tennis players, when they love tennis, they really love tennis. And so we're excited to see what you think about it. Before we kind of wrap up this call, I want to just quickly ask Nick, like, why does he love tennis so much? And then also his experience with natural footwear, or just a little bit about your experience on the tennis court with some of the concepts that we're talking about. But why do you love tennis so much, Nick?
Yeah. The $1 million question. I think I've thought about this a lot, and I think it really comes down to this idea of presence, of being when you're just hyper focused on the ball and the point, and really nothing else really matters. It's sort of this beautiful flow state. I live in Costa Rica. So I surf and I play tennis, and both these sports are really beautiful. And I think most sports kind of achieve this goal, but really just center you into the moment. And I think with tennis, there's also this idea of, you're dealing with failure all the time.
Minute by minute.
Minute by minute. And of course, there's a beautiful book there, The Inner Game of Tennis, right behind, that talks to some of this. And there's been a lot of other books, but really it's this ability to get out of my head, to move my body, to be in competition with others. I think those are the big reasons for me, and it just that creates so much. It just creates so much joy for me. And there's the other piece too is there's this kind of cerebral, kind of intellectual, the layers to the game, the strategies. As you get to a certain level, you can it opens up different opportunities of different shots that you can play, different strategies, the ability to have to adapt to what your opponent is doing. And it's sort of like, a chess match in terms of always having to stay sort of on top of that, which I think, for me, the other sport I play, it's surfing, is very much a natural expression, and it's kind of like dancing, and there's none of that sort of intellectual stimulation. So I really love the intellectual aspect of tennis, and the strategy, and the having to adapt, and change course. So those are some of my reasons. I could probably list another 20, but what are your top 3, Ruth?
Okay, so this is so amazing because, and I think like in future conversations, we're going to unpack the reasons more through other conversations. But my reason for falling in love with tennis most recently in the last few years is the opposite of yours.
Mm.
So I think what you're talking about on some level is a meditation, right? In surfing, like where you said you get out of your head, and yet at the same time, if you want to like really dive into the intellectual chess match of it, it's that. But what I noticed is that I spend a lot of time, I'm a health professional, I'm a health professional, I'm a health node in my community. And I spend a lot of time working and playing around health, and sitting meditations were messing with me so bad. I just could not wrap my brain around like sitting and so I started walking, and Matthew and I started playing. Matthew is my husband, my spouse. He set up those tennis rackets in the background for us for the studio. And I noticed that I started to get, when we would play tennis with each other, I was learning so much about my blind spots, not as a tennis player, but as a human. I would end up, after just a friendly game of tennis, I would be so fired up and so angry. Like I had anger that I was not even capable of addressing in a sitting meditation, but I was able to have an outlet on the tennis court. And then little by little, because we're self-organizing organisms, that feedback was like, well, I don't want to be like that, like how rude, and what a, like, and just, I started to notice some blind spots and working on them. And I started working all that shit out on the tennis court. And then, so it was more of an emotional, almost therapeutic aspect to tennis. And I came across a really great podcast by, I forget they're Stanford professors, but they teach a course at Stanford called the Touchy Feely course to business majors. And they had a podcast with Dr. Rangan Chatterjee about staying on your own side of the net. They used communication, a whole tennis metaphor about communication. And it blew my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, tennis just started coming to me in so many different ways. And I think I've become a better human, honestly, through developing my game of tennis. And now only recently, after a couple of years, am I starting to really be interested in the intellectual chess match of it. So the inner game of tennis talks a lot about building inner stability and really relying on that, almost that surf personality, that self two, or the person that is relaxed and not intellectual and in our heads as we play the game. And that was what I was most drawn to. So that's my love of tennis. I love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, that just shows right there we're we can come at it from so many different angles. So yeah, and I think the big piece of this as we develop this out is we want to hear from the community and hear what people are struggling with, what their pain points are, so we can best sort of address these issues. Because like we just saw, I think we all have come to this beautiful sport from many different angles. And so our goal is to really sort of address all that and help people, play more, play longer, play pain-free.
Yeah, play pain-free. I think the pain-free part on all levels is the most important part. And just in closing, I think that when we're going to release the product is April 1st is what we're aiming for. We plan to have it done before then, but we're giving ourselves plenty of time. But in the meantime, what our intention is to have more of these episodes unpacking all kinds of different conversations around foot health and footwear, which is a huge topic, injuries and books and all kinds of, like Nick was saying, all different aspects of tennis and how we can approach life through this sport in a healthier way. So with that being said, any closing comments, Nick, before we end and say ciao for now?
I think that's good. Yeah, April 1st is we'll be here in no time. So yeah, I look forward to diving into some of these topics, because it's probably every day that I get a question around around sneakers and what sneakers should I buy. Then people are talking about what Rafa or Novak Djokovic or Alcaraz, what these top pros are wearing, or even on the women's side, it's to really unpack that and really look at it from this different perspective of sort of holistic health and looking at it from the mechanics of the foot. So really looking forward to diving into all that with you.
And that's where we're headed next. So our next conversation will be around footwear, and we will probably incorporate some other foot nerds into the conversation. And we are going to say goodbye for now. If you are interested in pursuing your own foot restoration in the meantime, I'll leave some links and some information in the description box so that you can check out that for yourself in the meantime. And until we talk again, we will say ciao for now. So thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you taking the time. We don't take your times lightly, and we know that your attention is valuable. So thank you for joining us today. Ciao for now.